Hey everyone, today we're diving deep into Apple TV's latest sci-fi horror thriller, The Gorge, a movie packed with mystery, terror, and mind-bending creatures. Whether you've already watched the film or just heard about it, we're about to break down the bizarre and horrifying world of The Gorge, focusing on the terrifying hollow men and the mutated creatures that haunt this mist-filled gorge. If you don't want any spoilers, this is the time to pause. Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. If you're a fan of unsettling monsters and dystopian thrills, then stick around. Let's get into the crazy lore and twisted science behind these characters and creatures. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's get started. The Hollow Men, more than just monsters. First off, let's talk about the Hollow Men. These aren't your typical monsters. They're not just beasts you shoot and forget about. No, these creatures are much more than that, and their origins are deeply connected to both the movie's plot and a famous poem. Levi, the protagonist played by Miles Teller, is a character with a bit of a literary side. He's an elite sniper, but he also has a fascination with poetry, which ties directly into the movie's theme. In the movie, he identifies the Hollow Men as a reference to T.S. Eliot's 1925 poem, The Hollow Men. This isn't just a throwaway literary reference. It's deeply connected to the horror and existential dread Levi Andrasa, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, and experience throughout the movie. Now, in T.S. Eliot's poem, the Hollow Men represent a world of emptiness, a state of being stuck between life and death. It's a world filled with dread, and it's about people who are essentially lifeless but still moving through the motions. Sound familiar? That's exactly what Levi sees when he looks at the Hollow Men in the Gorge. These creatures are the remnants of soldiers stuck in a purgatory-like existence, neither fully alive nor fully dead. And honestly, that's terrifying. The birth of the Hollow Men, a dark history. But how did these soldiers become Hollow Men? How did they go from regular human beings to the abominations that stalk the Gorge? Well, it all traces back to the aftermath of World War II, during a secretive scientific experiment that involved multiple countries, including the US, UK, and Soviet Union. At the end of the war, the Allied forces were working on advanced chemical weapons, projects meant to rival the power of the Manhattan Project. But the whole thing went horribly wrong when a devastating earthquake struck, and that earthquake caused the chemicals to mix with human DNA in a catastrophic way. It's from this twisted mix that the Hollow Men were born. They were once soldiers, a battalion that had been part of the secret experiment, but after the earthquake, they became something else entirely. Levi, with his poetic knowledge, picks up on this connection as he walks through the gorge, surrounded by horrifying sights like skulls and the remnants of this twisted experiment. He realizes that the Hollow Men are no longer fully human. They've merged with plants, animals, and other elements in ways that make them immortal, yet not truly alive. It's like the soldiers were trapped between two worlds, unable to find peace. The horrifying side effects, mutated creatures, and the contamination. But wait, there's more. The Hollow Men aren't the only horrifying creatures lurking in the Gorge. As the story unfolds, Levi Andrasa discovered that the Gorge isn't just a cursed, abandoned place. It's also ground zero for a biological disaster. The earthquake, the chemicals, and the human experiments all contributed to creating more than just the Hollow Men. There are other mutated creatures lurking around, and they are equally terrifying. Let's start with some of the most terrifying mutants. Spiders with skulls on them. Yep, you heard that right. These spider-like creatures attack Levi Andrasa in a ruined church deep within the Gorge. Imagine walking into an abandoned place and seeing spiders with human skulls embedded in their bodies. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a nightmare. Then, there are the mutated horses. Originally part of the battalion that was stationed at the Gorge, these horses have now been transformed into undead creatures that are just as much a threat as their riders, the Hollow Men. Some of these horses are even used as steeds by the Hollow Men, adding another level of horror to the already horrific situation. It's as if everything in the Gorge has become a twisted version of itself.
The earthquake damaged the missiles and they started leaking.
Cyanide, and the desperate choices of the past. So, how did things get this bad? In the movie, Levi and Drasa explore an abandoned church and come across corpses covered in spider webs. What's worse is the smell of cyanide in the air. It turns out many of the people in the area chose to take cyanide to avoid being turned into hollow men. This is a dark and gut-wrenching moment in the Gorge. The virus that caused the mutation takes around 5 days to fully take effect. During that time, the people in the area realized that they were going to become something far worse than dead, something that could never find peace. To avoid this fate, some of them chose to end their lives with cyanide, rather than risk becoming one of the hollow men. In the Gorge, we learned that this tragic decision wasn't just about surviving, it was about containing the contamination. The chemical outbreak in the Gorge was so dangerous that anyone who could stop it chose to end their lives to prevent a fate worse than death. The mysterious missile silo. Something worse than the hollow men, but the horrors don't end there. There's another part of the Gorge that contains even more terror, a missile silo. This silo was once part of the military's operations, and it's filled with yellow goo that houses faces. Yep, faces. The earthquake caused the missiles to leak chemicals, and these chemicals have led to the creation of some sort of cocoon-like structures. Inside these gooey pods are creatures that resemble the hollow men, but they're still in their pupal stage. It's not fully clear what these creatures are yet, but it's easy to imagine that they are the next evolution of the horrors in the Gorge. The yellow goo seems to be a breeding ground, a nest for the next generation of mutants. What's even more disturbing is that it's not just 1 or 2 pods, it's a whole silo filled with them. This discovery suggests that the Gorge is constantly evolving, growing more dangerous and unpredictable by the day. It's like the Gorge itself is alive, and it's trying to consume everything around it.
No!
The uncertainty of what's to come. While the creatures in the Gorge are already terrifying, there's still so much we don't know about the full extent of the contamination. We don't know exactly how these creatures work on a scientific level, and that's part of what makes them so horrifying. The Gorge is an unpredictable and dangerous place, and every new discovery only makes things more terrifying. As Levi and Drasa continue their journey, they realize that the Gorge isn't just a place. It's a living, breathing organism of horror, and the more they uncover, the more they realize that it might be too late to stop the madness that's been unleashed. Our nerdy thoughts. In conclusion, The Gorge is a movie that explores not only physical monsters, but also the psychological toll of being trapped in an environment where death and life are indistinguishable. The hollow men, along with all the other mutated creatures, are the product of a dark experiment gone wrong, but they're also a reflection of the existential horror Levi and Drasa are going through. The Gorge isn't just a place, it's a symbol of the horrors we can't control. And as the film shows, some things are better left untouched, but once Pandora's box is opened, there's no going back. So, what do you think? Did the hollow men and other creatures in the Gorge scare the living daylights out of you? What do you think is lurking in the goo-filled pods in the missile silo? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more breakdowns of your favorite movies and shows. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.